Welcome to my channel. My name is Noah, and today I'll be showing you how I made this Reformation inspired top, starting with the pattern. So I'm going to start off with the pattern I already had from making this shirt. I'll leave a link in the description below to the tutorial that I followed. I took the two front pattern pieces and pinned those together, making sure I stay as close as I can to the edge. After that, I pinned everything to myself, being careful not to poke myself. I took a scrap piece of fabric that was about 2 inches wide, and I placed that where the sleeve ended on my shoulder and pinned it to the pattern pieces that were on the bodice. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line from where the edge of the strap hits me to about 3 to 4 inches down into the existing middle seam, and then this is basically going to be the two new pattern pieces. I removed all the pins attaching the pattern to me, making sure I don't remove the pins holding the pattern together. And this is what it should look like. Now I'm just going to trace out the two new pattern pieces onto some new scrap fabric and cut those out. Keep in mind that the new piece with the strap is going to be cut on a fold. For the back, I took the two back pieces that I had from the old pattern and traced those onto one piece of scrap fabric and basically did the same thing with the strap, making sure it would fit properly on my shoulder. Now I just cut out the pattern pieces from some craft paper so it would be easier to cut out the fabric and I could use it in future projects as well. As for the fabric, I went with this black stretchy velvet and I got 1.5 yards of fabric. Now you want to cut out your pattern pieces and make sure that the front and back pieces are cut on a fold, so you end up with one front panel, two side panels, and one back panel. Now what I'm going to do is pin the two side pieces to the front piece right sides together, meaning that both of the velvet sides are touching, and sew along where I pinned with a zigzag stitch. This fabric was kind of tricky to work with because apparently two pieces of velvet facing each other is very slippery. I tried to get around it by sewing a straight stitch and then doing a zigzag stitch over it and cutting away the straight stitch, but that didn't work, so I just worked slowly and hoped for the best. Next, I pinned the back to the front again, having the two sides of velvet facing each other, and sewed the straps together as well. Next, I gave it a try on and it was too large, which I kind of anticipated, but I always would rather it be too big than too small. I just measured out how much fabric I could take away and got about 4 inches. I decided it would be best to cut out 2 inches from each side, so I measured 2 inches from the side seams, and where I cut would be the new side seam. Then I made a line with some chalk and a ruler and kind of folded the fabric in so I could see what it would look like before I committed to cutting it. I cut out where I wanted the new side seam to go, and then finally removed 2 inches including the existing side seam so that I could sew a completely new side seam. I said side seam like 7 times there. Now I pinned and sewed the back and front together again, hoping that this time it would fit correctly. And sure enough, it does. I'm really happy with the fit now, and the only thing I needed to do was shorten the straps because they were a bit too large. I didn't want to bore you guys with this, so I just did this off camera. All I did was I shortened the straps and then I hemmed the bottom and the neck hole. To do that, I just folded the fabric in once and sewed with a zigzag stitch. There's no need to hem the armholes because that's where the sleeves will go anyway. Now it's time for the sleeves. First thing I did was I measured from the top of the armhole to about my wrist so that I could get the length. That was about 23 inches. Now I just folded down the remainder of the fabric onto itself, so I had 2 layers on top of each other and measured about 23.5 inches long and about 19 inches wide. If you're asking yourself, Noah, how did you get 19 inches? I don't know. That's a good question. You get a gold star. Now I'm just adjusting it a bit. I added another 1.5 inches for the length just to be safe, and I made this half circle shape for the top of the sleeve, but it didn't look right, so I got scared and didn't use it. I carefully cut out the rectangle, making sure I'm cutting both layers of fabric, and apparently disregarding all the lines I drew, making the sleeves even wider. Now I folded the rectangles in half again, making sure that all the layers were aligned and smoothed out any bumps in the fabric. I took a shirt I have that has really long bell sleeves and basically tried copying the sleeve shape and drawing it onto my fabric, making this kind of S curve shape. When I was happy with how it looked, I cut out the shape and I didn't film how the sleeve looked. Okay, now we're just gonna put the sleeves together, starting with gathering the top. To make the gather on the top of the sleeve, all I did was I made 2 parallel straight stitches only on the arches of the sleeves using the longest stitch length my sewing machine could go. I put 2 pins on either side of where the arches begin so I could know where to stop sewing. Now all you have to do is tie the top 2 threads on one side and the bottom 2 threads on the other side, and gently pull the threads that aren't tied on both sides, that way you gather the sleeve evenly. Next I folded the sleeves right sides together and sewed it shut with a zigzag stitch, trying to keep the lines as straight as possible while still maintaining sanity. The last thing I did was I folded the fabric inward once, giving myself enough room to fit 1/4 inch wide elastic. I pinned everything in place and sewed it down with a zigzag stitch, leaving a small gap to feed the elastic through. And do that all one more time, I promise it's worth it. I tried on the shirt one more time, now pinning the sleeves on so I could see how it looked, and honestly I really liked how it turned out like this, and I was debating whether I should leave it like this or add the elastic at the end, but I decided to add the elastic. To attach the sleeves, I flipped the sleeve inside out and fed it into the armhole and pinned that right sides together. Oh, and also making sure that the side seam of the bodice and the seam of the sleeves are aligned. If you're having a hard time understanding what to do here, like myself, I would recommend just taking a shirt from your closet and kind of looking, seeing how they attached it, if that helps. Once I was done pinning, I sewed all along the armhole with a zigzag stitch again, and repeated this on the other side. The last thing I did was I cut out a piece of 1/4 of an inch elastic to fit me comfortably on where the sleeve would hit on my wrist. I made sure to make it wider than my actual wrist so that it's not too tight when the fabric is bunched up around it. Finally, I inserted the elastic into the sleeve channel with a safety pin and sewed the elastic shut and the sleeve itself. And there you have it. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I had a really great time making this video and this shirt. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye!